You were taught that people make choices because of reasons. You were told that if you learn enough and argue well enough, behavior will follow logic. That belief keeps you weak. It blinds you to the engine that actually drives human action. The pattern is not reason. It is reinforcement. Here is the rule. When rewards arrive on a schedule you cannot predict, your brain gives that source priority over almost everything else. Attention locks on. Curiosity spikes. Time distortion sets in. You check again and again and again. Slot machines are the cartoon version. Social feeds, messaging, dating, promotions, politics, and most of modern life use the same structure. This is the dark pattern that controls the majority of human behavior. Variable reinforcement. Intermittent validation. Uncertain payoff tied to action. You were encouraged to trust motivation, to wait for inspiration, to seek passion. That is a pretty story for people who plan to be controlled. The people who build systems that scale do not rely on inspiration. They control the timing, frequency, and magnitude of rewards. They know that inconsistent rewards are more durable than consistent ones. They know that an occasional jackpot imprints harder than a steady drip. They design for compulsion, not comprehension. Understand the contrast. There are only two positions in this game: designer or subject. If you design the schedule of rewards in your life, you direct your own behavior with far less friction. If you submit to schedules designed by others, your day becomes a reaction to notifications, a reaction to approvals, a reaction to someone else's cadence. One path produces agency. The other path produces dependency dressed up as engagement. This is not new. Machiavelli wrote that people are driven by hope and fear. Control their hope, and you make them compliant without force. Control their fear, and you make them cautious without chains. The most stable regime uses both in rotation. Religion, markets, courts, and armies have always understood the utility of uncertain outcomes for discipline. You show mercy sometimes, punishment sometimes, favor sometimes, judgment sometimes. The subject learns to attend, to anticipate, to keep the authority at the center of their decisions. Intermittent reinforcement was not discovered by Silicon Valley. It was formalized there. Psychology puts lab terms on what history practiced. Skinner showed that behavior reinforced on a variable ratio schedule resists extinction. You pull the lever, sometimes nothing, sometimes a reward. That uncertainty produces more persistent action than a guaranteed payout every time. Neurobiology gives you the wiring. Dopamine is not a pleasure chemical. It is a predictor. It spikes when the reward is better than expected. It drops when the reward is worse. When the timing is uncertain, you get more prediction errors, more spikes, more checking, more repetition. Couple that with loss aversion, a strong bias documented by Kahneman and Tversky. The pain of missing a potential reward feels larger than the satisfaction of gaining the same reward. Uncertain rewards plus loss aversion create a loop that captures behavior with very little force. You see this everywhere. You post and sometimes it performs. You check and sometimes the message you want is there. You open the app and sometimes the match appears. You work and sometimes the recognition arrives. These systems train you. They set the cadence, not because there is a villain in a secret room, because uncertainty is efficient. It keeps you engaged with less cost for the operator. Your attention is budgeted by someone else's calendar. Your emotional state is pegged to a random ratio you do not control. The counterintuitive claim is simple. Motivation is fragile because it depends on a mood. Discipline is resilient because it depends on a schedule. Stoics solved this before the terms existed. Epictetus taught control of what is up to you and indifference to what is not. Your inputs and your standards are up to you. The timing and quality of external rewards are not. Marcus Aurelius wrote that the mind can choose its own aims and ignore what does not serve them. Stable aims break the grip of intermittent rewards. Predictable routines starve the loop that keeps you reactive. Another point you are never taught. Intermittent validation does not only capture attention, it shapes identity. When approval arrives on a shifting schedule, you reorganize yourself around getting it. You start editing your behavior to avoid unpredictable social penalties. This is how status hierarchies maintain shape without explicit coercion. Signals of belonging come in waves. The tribe accepts you today. Tomorrow, it withholds. You chase the next signal. Over time, you do not notice that what you value has been replaced by what gets recognized. Nietzsche warned that convictions are often prisons. In reality, many convictions are just well-reinforced habits that match a group's reward structure. There is a way out, not an easy way, a clear way. You must design the reinforcement structure that governs your behavior. You choose fixed inputs, you choose fixed times, you choose immediate, modest, predictable rewards for actions that matter, regardless of external applause. You refuse to let your nervous system learn that checking a feed is more important than finishing a page. You refuse to let your body learn that a buzz in your pocket outranks the plan you made the night before. This is not ascetic theater. It is effective control of prediction errors. You replace randomness with rhythm. You replace uncertainty with standards. Here is the part most people resist. You also limit exposure to variable schedules you do not own. Your environment is not neutral. The phone at your desk is not neutral. Every variable loop you leave available competes with your chosen loop. Most people try to compensate with willpower. That fails. The basal ganglia do not care about your self-concept. They care about what gets rewarded. Adjust the inputs. Remove the slot machine from reach. Put time and distance between you and triggers you are tired of reacting to. If you cannot remove them, confine them. Fixed window, fixed duration, fixed purpose. You do not negotiate every hour. You decide once like a builder, not every minute like a consumer. You will hear objections. This is controlling. This is rigid. This is joyless. The opposite is true. When you control reinforcement, you regain access to deeper forms of enjoyment that need time and attention. Flow depends on a protected channel. Mastery depends on repetition without constant interruption. Calm depends on predictability. The dopamine system settles when it trusts your schedule. Cortisol drops when your nervous system learns that nothing critical depends on the next ping. This is not about becoming a monk. It is about regaining the option to choose. Power comes from controlling the timing of rewards. This applies to self and to systems you lead. If you run a team, consistency and clarity outperform drama and surprise over a long horizon. Frequent, small, predictable feedback builds stable behavior that does not collapse when the leader is away. Machiavelli warned that it is safer to be feared than loved. Over time, it is even safer to be trusted than feared. Intermittent fear produces short spikes of compliance and long tails of resentment. Predictable standards produce stable respect that survives difficulty. Use the pattern with care. You can break people with it. You can also build people with it. The difference is intent and disclosure. This knowledge is seductive. You might be tempted to use it to keep people off balance. The consequences are not theoretical. People adapt. They recognize games that cost them dignity. They depart or they undermine from within. That is a slow failure that looks like success until it collapses. Stoic ethics are not decoration. They are the only durable base for power. Control yourself. Be explicit about your rules. Keep your word. Withhold rewards rarely and for clear reasons. Offer them consistently when standards are met. You stay in control of the schedule. You avoid the sickness that follows from living on other people's strings. At the level of personal habit, the application is plain. Choose one behavior that moves your life. Make the cue obvious. Make the first step trivial. Give yourself a small, guaranteed reward immediately after. Not a windfall, a signal. Your brain does not need fireworks. It needs certainty. Keep the window small and repeat daily. The environment should screen the action at the time you chose. The result is not traumatic in a week. It is unassailable in a year. You are training your prediction system to associate important work with reliable payoff. That is the antidote to lives hijacked by intermittent validation loops. You will still use variable rewards. You will use them on yourself in controlled doses to build tolerance for uncertainty, voluntary discomfort, planned challenges with unclear outcomes. You step into them because you chose them, and you can step out. This inoculates you against the chaos that sends others into compulsive checking. Seneca practiced poverty so that fortune could not terrify him. The modern version is simpler. You choose a window of uncertainty on your terms. You train your stress response to stay within your control panel. When real uncertainty hits, you do not fold into the nearest loop. You remain capable of action. One more layer that most ignore. Status is the most potent reinforcer in social creatures. Status is assigned through attention, access, and imitation. The schedule for status in public arenas is almost entirely variable. Do not tie your internal scorecard to it. You can play status games when they serve a strategic end, when it is work, when your mission requires public signals. Do not let your sense of worth rise and fall with the algorithm's cycle. Build private metrics that are closed to outside manipulation. Write them down. Rate yourself against them. Keep them boring. Keep them stable. When public status rises, you do not get drunk. When it falls, you do not beg. People feel that stability and treat you differently. The binary is real. You can be cast by every platform and person you encounter. Or you can be the author of the inputs that shape your behavior. The first path requires nothing. The second path requires you to ignore many things you were trained to chase. It requires the calm to be thought dull by those who think novelty is a virtue. Epictetus was right. If you want to improve, be content to be thought foolish. Your results will make your case without debate. I will repeat the core ideas. Behavior follows reinforcement. Intermittent rewards are stronger than guaranteed ones. Your nervous system is tuned to prioritize uncertainty. If you do not control the schedules in your life, someone else will. This is not a moral statement. It is a mechanical one. You can be offended by it, or you can act on it. Only one of those options changes anything. Most people will not apply this. They will keep chasing the next unpredictable signal because it feels alive. They will perform busyness and call it ambition. They will confuse being informed with being effective. They will lose years. They will blame motivation. They will buy a new planner. They will remain subjects inside systems that pay for their attention with crumbs. You are not most people. You are still watching because you recognize the structure. Because a part of you is tired of reacting and ready to direct. Use this carefully. Start with your own life. Build a schedule that a distracted world cannot break. Limit exposure to loops that carve up your day. Train yourself to sit with boredom long enough for deep work to start. Take public rewards when they serve your plan. Ignore them when they do not. This is not a trick. It is a posture. If you want more, you know where to find it. What comes next is not for everyone. It requires you to measure yourself in a way that cannot be gamed. It requires you to set standards that will make other people uncomfortable. It will make you an outlier in any room that celebrates distraction. That is the point. The door is open. Step through if you are ready to stop being bait and start being the one who decides what is worth chasing. Commit to 1 week. Audit the variable schedules you obey. Kill one. Build one fixed loop around a behavior you claim to value. Hold the line with no drama. If you cannot do it for 7 days, you are not in control yet. Watch what changes when you do. The pattern cannot be escaped by wishing. It can be mastered by design. This is the knowledge most people will never see clearly. It is not hidden. It is inconvenient. Use it carefully. Use it without cruelty. If you do, you will find that freedom is not a feeling. It is a schedule you keep. It is a mind you train. It is a life that does not twitch every time the world shakes a bell.